Well, welcome all of y'all, and thank you all for waiting for 18 minutes to keep you all waiting for this most awaited event, which is, what does top management expect from training and L&D? So, not taking much of the time, I'll quickly introduce to our panelists. We have Mr. Natarajan, 36 years of experience, industry veteran, and a fantastic speaker and an ocean of humongous knowledge. Currently, he's the chairman of board for Honeywell Automation 5W, also member of chairman of our council of NASCOM, and an independent director with SBI Payment Services. In the past, he spearheaded two organizations as the CEO, which is Zenzar and Aptec. Welcome, Mr. Natarajan, for our panel discussion.
Thank you.
Then we have Ms. Mridula. Wow, 35 years of experience, a passionate CXO coach, and a person with a blended of experience in business management as well as learning. She's someone who's been both sides of the journey, be it the president of India UAE Women Indian Chairman of Commerce and Industry. She's also the founder for What Rich Consultants. In the past, she's been CEO at Global Talent Trap, CLO at Flipkart and Goldman. Welcome, Radhila. Looking forward to hear you. Miss George. Miss George, 36 years of experience in L&D, OD, HR, and DEI. Currently, Geeta ji, she's the senior EVP with HDFC Bank and heads the practice of talent management, organization, and cultural diversity and illusion, employment engagement, and communication. I think the list is quite long. In the past, she's been CHRO with Rahejas and Raymond, and many more amazing roles. We're blessed to have you as Geeta ji as one of our moderators who will be taking the session. I will also introduce you to Mr. Nair. Personally worked with Mr. Nair for a very long time, close to 36 years of experience, very young, dynamic person who's full of energy. Founder and CEO of Unilight Ventures. He's currently on board of directors for four organizations, which is Equentis Research and Ranking, Searchlight, and Dane Warehousing. Welcome, Mr. Nair. Just looking forward to get your video started, and then we can take this ahead.
Yes, we'll do that. In the meantime, let's start, please. I mean, I don't want to be the reason to be held up. Sorry about this.
Yeah. Video is not that important. So why don't you go ahead?
Not an issue. So, Miss George, I pass on the virtual baton to you for this amazing event. Looking forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shraddha, and welcome to all of you to this discussion. It promises to be an amazing conversation with some of my old friends and going to be new friends. So it's a pleasure to welcome all of you. And I was just thinking about the topic today and thought that, I mean, if I were to kind of summarize my own career journey, a lot of it has been learning has been central to that. While of course I have done a lot more beyond that, but even in my various roles as HR head and as process leads for OD and other things, culture and other things, learning and capability building has been central to how organizations have chartered their growth journey. And today, all the more relevant because of the changing times we are in. There is tremendous uncertainty, ambiguity, and HR space in particular is rapidly changing. And in many ways, I think all of us who are sharing this space are fortunate to be in the center of it. We have seen where we come from with our 2-3 decades of work experience, and also probably have some agency to shape the future as it unfolds. So with that context, we will set this conversation rolling. We'll start with one question each with each panelist, and then we'll take it as it goes from there, if that's okay. So I have planned for about 45 minutes of discussion, and then we can have maybe some questions from the audience, and then we can summarize. So that's how I have thought of going about this. So without much ado, I think I'll start with Ganesh, to you. The world as we see it, both from business point of view, organizations, the political ecosystem, geopolitical scenario, economic uncertainties, a lot is changing currently. So if you can just take us through significant shifts that we are seeing in the business context globally and in particular in India, then that can set the stage for the rest of the conversation to unfold.
Sure, thanks, Geeta. And you're absolutely right, because you mentioned it's a cliche to say it's a VUCA world. But today, unfortunately, the first V is becoming, I would say, V for violence, because there's violence in thought, violence in action, violence everywhere. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that. I mean, if you look at the geopolitical situation that you mentioned, I mean, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, and what is happening in the Gaza is preposterous. And of course, what Israel is doing with, what Russia is doing with Ukraine, and so many smaller conflicts, the role of Iran. I think, we're all in a very, very volatile situation. There's no doubt about that. The second, of course, is you mentioned India. I mean, I'm very saddened by the rhetoric in the ongoing elections, because this is not what we expect any politician to behave as. I mean, it's like a free slanging match. And what does it mean? It just means that the general mood of citizens, the general mood of thinking people becomes violent, in the sense, everybody has a point of view. I'm sure many of you are on WhatsApp groups or left WhatsApp groups where people take violent positions one way or the other. And it just kind of brings this whole environment into a turmoil. I mean, add to that the 45 degrees plus heat that we're experiencing all over the country and the world. That doesn't make life any simpler. So I think if you look at what's happening externally, it's very, very concerning. I mean, in my 65 years of existence, I have not seen a world as divided and violent as it is. Second, if you if you go beyond the world environment, if you look at how technology is pushing us, I've been in technology for the last 40 years of my life, but today it's unprecedented. I was on a ZTV show just a few days ago talking about this new launch of ChatGPT 4 omnichannel. And effectively what it will mean is that work as we know it, the work that we were trained for and we enjoyed doing, will probably go away completely. So somebody was asking me that what jobs will remain. Quite honestly, I don't know the answer. I mean, because if you look at factory jobs, it's completely taken over by automation. And in fact, in Honeywell itself, we're now integrating our industrial automation strategy with our AI strategy. So in a sense, the factory will not only run by itself, but if there's a problem, the prediction of what is the problem and the prescription of what can be done will be done through AI. And then there's the automatic fixing. So it begs the question, what is the role of the human being? Similarly, if you look at banking or you look at financial services, look at healthcare, except for the role of the doctor, I think a lot of roles which involves diagnostics, involves so many things, will be replaced by AI. So that's the other fear. I'm sure that's back of the mind of many people, including leaders, saying, how do we really cope with the new world? So I think to summarize it, leadership is now all about navigating very complex situations. Leadership is all about predicting how the world will change thanks to the technology pushes and the environmental pulls. And leadership is also about saying that, look, how do we get people to believe in purpose, to believe in the concept that the organization stands for, and to believe that they can be part of the change and not just be cynical and less passionate than many of us were when we started our careers, and make it forward. So I think that's the unfortunate situation there is. The mitigating factor, of course, is we have good leaders everywhere. I mean, today, even in India, I'm not talking about politicians, I'm really talking about the corporate leaders. I think corporate leaders have what it takes. The reason why State Bank of India is so successful today, and I was on the board for 3 years and seen the market cap growing almost 3.5 times, or a Honeywell for that matter, which is today, just in India, it's a $5.5 billion valuation company, is because we have thoughtful leaders. And I'm sure we can rely on our leaders to navigate us through these uncertain times. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh, for that, for ending on hope, because I think that's where everything hinges on. That is there a future that is positive that we can look forward to? And do we have the agency as leaders in our own spaces to be able to make a difference there? So given this context, Mrudula, coming to you now, what role do you think continuous capability building in organizations' success and individual successes play? Does it have the potential to be a competitive advantage anymore? Because that used to be the time when we said that human capability is a competitive advantage. Is that so? Will it continue to be so? And what roles then, therefore, learning teams can play to accelerate this?
Thank you so much, Geeta, for asking that question. And I would just request Bilal to put that one slide that I wanted to show. So capability building, I thought we will just take a minute to define what we mean by capability building also before we talk about it, because it's such a wide world. a lot of us think of capability as perhaps learning, development, upskilling, getting ready for future. But it feels much more broader and wider. There was an HBR article that was published, and Dave Ulrich's article, which said there are 11 capabilities that help businesses to become successful in today's time and age. And these capabilities, so for me, to answer your question in short, it's a survival call. Capability building and continuous development of people, making sure that we are anticipating the need for future. We are anticipating what AI is going to impact the job, which jobs it's going to impact, what kind of world we are going to look into 5 years hence, is going to be a very, very critical question. So the 11 skills, while the slides are coming up, I feel like it's a survival call. So everybody has to be totally sort of focused on it. And I'm just going to read out. Bilal, are you putting the slide up? So it's a very interesting.
Yes, I'll be putting the slide. Just give us a minute.
Right. So I'm just going to talk through the slide also. While the first thing, of course, is how we attract, motivate, and retain competitive talent and committed people to our portfolio. How also we make important changes rapidly. This is the time of change. It's like Ganesh said, it's such a volatile world, violent world, so to say. So change is really, really important, how we navigate it. Ensuring that employees and customers have positive and consistent experiences. And I think there again, the culture, the kind of experiences that we give them right from throughout the journey of the employee life cycle, but right from induction, how we are welcoming them into the organization to how we navigate their experiences throughout the journey and help them grow and succeed, and even manage exits where it is required to. Obtaining high performance from employees, working across boundaries to ensure both efficiency and leverage that, generating and generalizing ideas. So that's a lot about creative thinking, embedding leaders throughout the organization. So leadership role becomes very, very critical. Leaders with empathy, authentic leadership that is able to connect with people and help them see the path ahead. I think that is required so much in such a dynamic world where most people's jobs are changing, especially in tech. I was doing a leadership journey for 60 women in an organization. And in my one-on-one coaching conversations, a lot of them are talking about how do I learn the next skill. I'm so stuck in my current job, in my current technology, I don't have time to learn the next skill. And how do I upgrade myself? And how quickly can I do? And is my manager helping? Is my manager having those conversations with me? Does the organization provide me opportunities to go for 3 months to another project where I can acquire new skills? And in that also managing work and home. So it's quite a tricky situation and tremendous pressure. So that is another one. Embedding leaders throughout the organization and building enduring relationships of trust. I think trust is the key. To Ganesh's point again, when we talk about so much violence is because there is lack of love and there is lack of trust. And those are the fundamentals that, that is the core capability. I feel like if we can do, the rest can build on top of it. And then, of course, we have things about how do we articulate the strategic point of view? How do we look at the processes and the content that we have? And how do we manage costs? So I thought this was a really nice segue to say, if these were the 11 core capabilities we were to develop as businesses, what sort of leaders we need to have? What is the challenge ahead for L&D? Because oftentimes L&D is about one-off programs, which doesn't work anymore. Geeta, this will resonate so much more with you. Can we embed L&D strategies across the life cycle of an employee and then take holistic decisions around that? So I think, yeah, it's very, very critical.
Yeah,
I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vidula. And this, the whole discussion around leaders having to be empathetic and authentic and create an environment of trust seem to be underpinning all conversations and probably the need of the hour. But at some point, I'll come back to that. Are these trainable capabilities? Okay, there's a question I have to ask, but I think I'll pause that. I'll just park that question. I want maybe Ganesh to respond to that later. But moving to Jitendra, now that we can see you, there is a popular joke that is much told. Okay, the CFO asking the CHRO is, We are investing so much money in these people, and what if all of them leave very soon? And the CHRO responding that imagine a scenario when we'll not invest all this in these people and they stay. So with that, let me go on to the question that I want to ask you. So as an investor and an entrepreneur, there is much conversation about L&D teams being cost centers in organization. In most organizations, including mine, it is treated as a cost center, which means there is an expense out that gets made. What's your view on this? And how should organizations be looking at this function going forward? Or even within the organization, how should it be positioned?
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
We can't hear you, so yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is it better now? Yeah. So thank you for asking me. My view is quite similar to your view. And truth be told, it appears to be a cost center, at least as far as organizational perceptions are concerned. And I would believe that there is no stigma to be a cost center because there are so many departments which are business enablers. And, in my view, these business enablers are the true catalyst for running a business in terms of growing it to the level that any CEO would want it to be, and in terms of enhancing market value and shareholder value. So this is a cost center, and the general perception is that of a cost center. And I would believe that this perception to change will take structural, if I may use that word, structural changes. And even in terms of the boardroom talks on how we perceive L&D would form a very crucial part in changing this perception. However, maybe because we come from a training and education background, some of us, and I know people who are people with similar thinking lines, we do look at L&D as a crucial element to augment our business to the next level. But मुझे ऐसा लगता है, and I strongly feel so, that some level of measurability, if we can bring into L&D as a function, okay, this whole concept of looking at it as a cost center will start and it will start to evolve in a different manner. And by that, what I'm trying to say is today, the challenge with any CEO or a CFO is not in terms of spending. It is in terms of the absence of understanding of what yield has it given as an investment or as an expenditure, and that to mitigate that, there are no clear solutions. So I have been propagating or speaking about this, and even when I used to be in executive functions, that how do we bring in measurability training programs? Agar wo aa jaye, if there's an element to bring that in my view, this whole perception will change. To give you a small analogy, even if you look at how HR was perceived about, say, a decade back, it was looked at completely as a cost center. Today, to a time when, if you look at the quality of HR heads today, they are no less than any CEOs. These are folks who can just walk into a boardroom and demonstrate their capabilities, even in terms of leading organizations. And some of the best organizations that Ganesh spoke about just now, these are companies which have shown that even HR heads can be good CEOs. And this whole world is now looking at the new term is HR business partner. And I would live very, very eagerly to look at a day when people are looking at L&D as a business partner. And this whole integration, it happened once upon a time, about L&D being a part of HR. And there were very strong reasons. This is not to criticize as to what happened in the past, but as businesses evolve, pehle aap dekh lijiye, if you look at talent acquisition, it was a part of HR. But as organizations started evolving to a different level, we have seen separations of a different form functionally, where the talent acquisition team is different and the human resource development or the human business partnering team is different. So we see that. And similarly, I think L&D needs to have its own DNA, and L&D needs to have its own personality, a level of voice where they are moving on from an execution role, perhaps to a planning role. To me, if you were to ask me, L&D can play a very crucial role in terms of identifying what is the program. Today, it is emerging from the other side. But I don't know. It's like saying, I want to be something, but am I capable to be that? In the academia world. But in the training ecosystem, if you look at it, a company would always do well if there is a collaborative aspect in terms of identifying what those training needs are and then planning a delivery and then doing it. At the moment, it's fairly transactional. And that's one of the reasons why it is looked as a cost center. But mujhe nahi lagta usme koi stigma hai. I personally don't feel there's any stigma attached to it. There are so many business functions where there's a lot of gratitude for the kind of contributions that they make in the back end. and this is one of them.
Mm.
And L&D to me is a very crucial part, especially when your organization reaches a 4-digit number in terms of number of employees. Then I think in the absence of training process, you would just be walking into some level of erosion of productivity, which perhaps may once again not be measurable. So I would stick to that point saying that yes, it is a cost center, probably will continue to be a cost center, but structural changes in terms of certain measurability coming in could be a potential solution to what is required. And obviously the boardrooms also need to invite L&Ds into strategy and decision making. Those would be my submissions.
So the only change I would make to what you just said, Jitendra, is to call it an investment rather than cost. Because I don't think there is any way organizations can operate or function with any relevance without L&D. So it should be treated as an investment. That's the only subtle nuance that I will add to what you just mentioned.
Unfortunately, perception and financially, we can't call it as an investment. It's always considered as an expense.
I know.
And none of the CFOs would call it as a capex.
No, that is true. A balance sheet line item. I understand. Okay, coming to you, Ganesh, and coming back to our earlier question, there were some of those leadership capabilities we said, but the nagging question is.
Listen, on the group, somebody had asked for a cook, okay, South Indian cook. I don't know whether you saw. Are you in the group still or no? Okay. I gave Radha's number because the other day Shalini was saying she's looking for work.
Maybe South Indian cooking is a solution to leadership.
That's
a
more critical challenge to solve.
No, actually, Mridula and I will agree. They keep our lives going. Okay, so over to you, Ganesh. Are these trainable capabilities? Because if it isn't, then it puts us in a very risky place. If you don't have the right person at the top and we can't train him or her, then we are stuck. Are these acquirable skills? Empathy, authenticity, ability to build trusting environment where organizations can experience the speed of trust, as they say. Otherwise, everything gets documented. You have to keep a mail trail because you don't know who's at your back and when something can get called out. Yeah, over to you.
No, I think, Geeta, very much acquirable. In fact, I think the one advantage of youth today is that they don't say die, in a sense they believe, and you're a classic example, Mridula is a classic example. We all worked together for many years. Like I still remember 1991 when I got an unusual opportunity at the age of 33 to be the CEO of this company, Aptech. At that time, as you know, I was the head of learning and development of the whole corporate training business of NIIT in Delhi, and I moved to Bombay. And it was all skills I acquired to be a CEO. Nobody taught me how to be a CEO. But you learn, and the point that you made earlier that there's no longer, even in 1991, which I'm talking about, there was no environment where you could bully people or be their boss or sit in the corner office and lord over everybody, which would succeed. So it was all a question of love and inclusion. In fact, the company I now run, which is called 5F World, is built on the culture developed in Aptech for 10 years and then practiced and refined in Zensar for 15 years, which is all about fast, focused, flexible, friendly, fun, which is where 5F World comes from. And my belief is a 5F world is created not by somebody coming in from Harvard Business School or IIM Ahmedabad. It's created by somebody who genuinely feels passionately about people. And your little discussion on cost and investment, I 100% agree with you that we have to look at learning as an investment to the extent that, one of the big things we've done in the last 3 years is to invest in a complete AI-based adaptive learning platform called Skills Alpha, which is one of our big investee companies. And what does it do? It really means it says that, look, there is no longer a method by which you can force people to attend a 3-day training program. I mean, it could be Tom Peters or it could be Mridula, but people will still be on their WhatsApp half the time. I would confess that I've been on WhatsApp for the last 10 minutes. It's ridiculous, but that's the way we are. Okay, so in that context, our whole thing is that people, you can take a horse to the water, can't make it drink. People should want to drink, and that is the investment. So you have to invest in AI to prompt them. You have to invest in adaptive learning so that somebody who learns through video better than maybe just a conversation is able to see that. So this completely adaptive methods is the investment I'm asking people to make, because the good old methods of chalk and talk or stand up and train will go away. and you have to do a lot of asynchronous and synchronous learning the mechanisms. So I think that's important. But to answer your basic question, leaders will evolve. Leaders have to evolve. Otherwise, we'll all become dinosaurs. I mean, I myself have changed so much. I mean, the core of love and inclusion remains. But in terms of leadership style, in terms of getting stuff done, I think I have changed substantially. And all the people I see around me, I mean, Jitendra, you talked about HR entering the boardroom. Classic example is Santosh Mishra, Aditya Birla Group. I mean, he ran businesses. Today, he's standing for elections from Odisha. So tremendous versatility. And who else but than HR to have that kind of open mind and versatility to do whatever you want in future. So I think the limitation of leaders lies within ourselves. If we believe that the world is our oyster and we can pretty much do whatever we want, irrespective of your background, could be finance, could be HR, could be whatever, I think you'll kind of be malleable and you will change your leadership style to suit the occasion. And today, as I mentioned earlier, there's a call, it's a clarion call for all good leaders, all well-meaning leaders to get into every walk of life, corporate, social, politics. I think that is how countries, nations, societies, and the world will evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. With you on that, Ganesh. And one thing that you've repeatedly said, that maybe it's a call for action for all good-meaning people in whatever walk of life they are in to step up and lead the change. Jitendra, over to you again before I come to Mridula. One question that I wanted to ask you is that there is some data says that there is about 29% young graduates in India who are unemployed. And organizations like us who are large employers are always short of good talent. Where is this gap and what can we do to bridge it?
Okay. Now, yeah, I mean, this has been something that the industry has been talking. I think there's a lot of realization as far as this is concerned. To me, it's a two-pronged solution. As I see it, on one side, you will need structural reforms that will come in. I strongly feel that the new education policy, which I've read very, I will not say in a detailed manner, but I've gone through it in that sense of the word. And I see that the new education policy is addressing that bit. However, on the academia side, if you see, I have a fundamental problem with the way these things are delivered. I mean, this is my personal view, though. I don't see a reason why an MBA is delivered over 2 years for the content that is being taught now. So truth be told, you look at the fact that these are content that can be covered. We are going, that's the Indian concept of looking at how many years are we learning, as compared to looking at how many hours of training engagement do you have. And what is happening is the industry needs educated and trained resources. And what we have in the academia system is throwing up only educated students, because the practical aspect, which is what we call as training,
the skills,
is an element which is, the skill element is completely missing from the curricula. And because of which this, till the time we don't have a structural reform which will address at the university level, this is going to stay. However, I think India has a very strong corporate ecosystem where people come together, they find solutions. Being a part of the training industry, I've seen, if you see the way IT training ecosystem has evolved over a period of time, sizable amount of companies have very good revenue models out of induction training, that they do for large organizations. Now, what is induction training? It is typically what the university should have taught them, which they have not learned. They come to a class. So, for example, Ganesh's earlier company, Zensar, would go out and hire thousands of people, and they will be put into a batch over a period of 2 months. And, and they will be trained to be what we use the word operational first hour. Ab ye kaam wahan pe bhi ho sakta tha. If one would have had the foresight at the university level, they could have collaborated with a good training organization, a good training institute, or perhaps inbuilt strength in terms of delivering what the industry requires. And they could have collaborated to build it. I see this coming. Now, to give you an example, I think in India, we would have roughly about 1 million, 10 lakh log graduate hote every year. Okay, out of which about, if you're talking about 29 or 30% that you spoke about, we're talking about 3 lakh students not getting jobs. But the truth is 7 lakhs of them are getting jobs too. Those 3 lakhs in that sense are folks who are beyond this IT training industry, because the IT guys, because of strong demand and compulsions of projects, have figured out their own way. Other businesses, maybe the sense of urgency is not as much, and they would wait for these guys to go out, get trained, invest their own money, come back, and then get employed. So the crucial point being made is that there is a component of training which is missing from our academia. So that has to be either done by structural reforms by the government, which I believe there is an attempt, a strong one, or by the industry. फिलहाल तो वो industry कर रहा है, and till the time they don't find a solution, the good thing is all CEOs are very smart. They find a solution to go out. Now I'll tell you, in the business that I am in, the fintech space, we have strong requirement for, because it's a very regulated business. It's an extremely regulated business. So anybody who's client facing has to be NISM 10A and 10B certified. It's a financial certification required, which is extremely high. Now that's the regulation. You can't challenge the regulation, but you have to build an ecosystem, okay, which will encourage, because fear motivation does not work. So you have no choice but to encourage them either through financial encouragement or through HR motivation, and get these folks certified. अपने आप में एक process है. But if somebody has that foresight that, look, this is what I want to get into, this could be something that could have been done much earlier. So this gap will exist. And mind you, it's very easy to be critical, but the fact is that we are a very large nation. So it's like turning a ship. It's not going to be easy. Any policy change to get implemented is a decade. So ye jo aaj jo problem hai, that sense is not going to be an overnight solution. There's no solution by the time you say Jack Robinson, it's going to get done. Aisa nahi hoga. But the ship is turning. If out of 10 lakh, 3 lakh are only left today, I'm sure the industry will find its own way out. But even the private institutions are getting matured now. As I see it, I would, if I had to be running a private institution, I would say that, look, out of your 2 years MBA, just do 1 year of studying, education, and 1 year of training. And that training has to be hands-on with some of the smartest minds that you can think of. And if that would mean these folks are not paid for that time, so be it. Seekhna padega. The training part of it has to be done by them, is my submission. And I strongly feel that there is a change in the ship, and the ship is turning. This gap will erode with time, but it's not a solution that is there for the next 3 to 5 years. So anybody who's building their business plan today for IT services or some of those other services which are fresher based, they will have to factor in the fact that induction, going into colleges, cutting timeline, eroding cost is going to be the solution. And I see this as a sustainable model in the near future.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that, Jitendra. So a very strong, structured public sector, private sector, academia partnership in the years to come is what will effectively solve this problem. And in the interim, what you're saying is that organizations will need to bridge the gap in their own ways by building strong onboarding programs and skilling programs.
I must tell you also, as addendum to what I said, a lot of credit to some of the stalwarts, the way they have. You look at the IT services contribution to the overall nation's development.
That's right.
It's impeccable. And nobody had come out saying that, look, these are resources available, go out. And, a lot of them built in beautiful training institutions, which helped in terms of fostering that demand. So it is something which I think India as a nation should be proud about, the way we have propelled this whole thing and made it into, and so much so that, IT training by itself became a large ecosystem. So many companies created so much of value. Ganeshji himself has been a legend in that business. So aise bahut sare cases hain. And I think there's a serious case for us to be proud. And, and some of the other industries will borrow from it. Now I see manufacturing as the next big thing in India. Services obviously is doing very well. Now within manufacturing, the other day we were talking about one crucial component. There are no great safety training schools in India. And by compliance, in India, most businesses are getting compliance oriented. These are great opportunities. So ek aap loge, subsets of each particular sector. So much to do. Sochne wala chahiye. There has to be thinkers and subsequently guiders who can help people to do, what they're supposed to do. But I am very proud about what some of the industries are, even the BFSI industry. They have been very, very good in, in ensuring that.
I was just going to add that. So last 5 years has exposed me to some extremely deep level of work that is happening in the BFSI sector as well. And previous to that, also in the retail sector. So much of the development and skill building happens after the person has joined the organization, and very systemic investments in that space. So you're right. So industries are maturing in this space. IT services, of course, led the way. Also telecom, for that matter. So thank you for that. Coming to you, Mridula, half-life of skills, as they now call it, is sharply shrinking by the day. Now, given this context, how can capability building efforts in organizations actually keep pace with this?
Yeah.
And how can it? Because it looks like there is a gap, and in spite of trying. So of course, everything is well-meaning, but there seems to be maybe a different way to do this.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think, no, that's a great question. And I think all organizations, it's not just absolutely necessary for the survival of organizations, but also to sustain growth, that they must have really, really solid embedded systems of learning. And I feel also from leadership to every single employee must have two skills to cope with future, to become future ready, to sustain this half-life of skills, is adaptability and learnability. And these two crucial skills are very, very important for me to let go of my old ways of doing things and to be able to adopt either new styles of leadership, as Ganesh was talking, or new technology, or getting more savvy with the different tools. There are tons of tools in every single field which are available. AI is going to really infringe our spaces as we talk about it. So we'll have to learn to do things AI way. How many people are using Chat GPT for, or even understanding that is a question. So I'll share a couple of examples of how learning needs to be half-life. I always used to say that, as a learning and development head, as a CLO, I would say to people that every year you must learn one new skill. I've been saying this for last 10 years. And now I have started to say you must learn a new skill every 3 to 6 months, because how things are changing and your adaptability will be put to test and your learnability will be put to test. And some of the systems that L&D functions, HR functions can create within the organizations to inspire that thought and ignite that passion among employees. A great example was when I was at Flipkart. When I joined the organization, they had an interim CLO for 2 years. And then I was the first dedicated CLO after 2 years. So I asked my team, what is the one thing, if you were in my seat, what is it that you would do? What is the gap? So they said something which was very surprising to me was that, we don't, as L&D team, we don't have great relationships with our business leaders. So I said, wow, that's like really crucial. And that should be my first thing to do. So I went and did all my meetings with all the business stakeholders, which anyway I would do, but this time more consciously to see where we really truly stand. And as I started doing these meetings, I heard all kinds of responses saying, have you come for your training needs analysis again and not to deliver anything else? Or another person said, L&D, what's that? And, these responses were like very, very shocking to me for an organization that was so successful and so large. But over a period of time, we started to really, really partner with the business. I feel like L&D cannot be the, like you said, execution team only. It has to partner with business. And in order for us to partner with business, we must understand what business priorities are. What are their top 3 priorities? What keeps them awake at nights? And we really partnered with them. For us, another challenge was we roll out fancy programs. We use Udemy, Coursera, Skillsofts and whatnot, and online learning platforms and great trainers who we pay thousands of dollars to. And then people don't show up in the class. People don't adopt the online learning programs for which organizations have invested huge. So we said, how do we solve this problem? And we wanted a lot of technologists to learn a lot of basic technology skills so that they can be trained and they can become fungible resources. So the L&D team really worked with the business and said, okay, what are the problems the business is solving today? We actually went from one business to another, all the businesses, and we identified 24 problems, which were the business problems. Business wanted that fixed as of tomorrow, as of 3 months down the line. We tabulated all those problems and we said we need to actually operationalize that. How do we do that? So somebody came up with the idea of a hackathon. And but for the hackathon, we said, and we knew that technologists were very, very excited about hackathon always, because it was like a big kick for them. 24 hours around the clock, they would be coding in teams together and coming up with solutions, and then there'll be big prizes, etc. But we said, okay, you will participate in hackathon if you go through these 5 trainings. So that is the eligibility criteria. And believe me, all those trainings, otherwise we would actually say, please come to the training, please come to the training. They actually signed up for it because they wanted to participate in hackathon. the hackathon happened. I was one of the judges in that, and I saw all the solutions. It was crazy how within 1 hour of announcing the hackathon, there were all the 1,000 people actually registered. We had 960 registrations. At the end of 24 hours, they presented their solutions, and you would not believe 14 problem statements that business had articulated out of 24 were operationalized. So they were on Flipkart's, business problems were solved like that. And I saw that as such a great example of how if learning marries the needs of the business, you can inspire people. And the people, like people who used to get into training programs earlier would say, oh, I have to go for another training, were actually coming in saying that, hey, by the way, I solved that business problem. I was part of that team that solved this. And we would then ask a simple question to anybody saying whether you are in finance or you're in HR or you're in technology, what is the business problem? What are you solving for? And if that what are you solving for answer is not solid, and it's just, I want to do a training for the fun of it, then it's not going to fly. So that was one. The second thing was also to get very, very senior people into the room to talk and have open, candid conversations, literally like putting them in hot seat. And I thought that was extremely transformational as well, because a lot of times we hide behind layers after layers. And it is the mental bureaucracy, I would say, that you don't get to the real person. You get only superficial responses. People, become spokes in the wheel for each other's goals and objectives. So those kind of programs brought in tremendous amount of authenticity and trust, where I had to bare my heart as a leader. Before I asked my team, what is the challenge and how am I going to solve for it? We got good facilitators to facilitate that dialogue, because it's quite sensitive. And that's where the role of L&D becomes really critical as facilitators. And then the collaboration within across functions became really very beautiful. And your question was, are these all skills trainable? Yes, they are trainable, because I saw the degree of trust that went up, the authenticity that went up, the need to solve for the organization went up. So that I thought was extremely powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Mrudula, for sharing that example. I think it was quite inspiring. With the closer you can get to business problems and link your learning to that, I think the success lies in that. And
the other thing that I
IT,
just one more thing,
yeah.
sorry, just one more thing that I will say is, one is to understand your business. The second is to understand what's happening in the market. So don't miss the sight of market intelligence. Business leaders love that. So as a learning team, if you can bring that into the fold, and then what is the mindset that we are working on? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and the close linkage of the two, the impact I'm making because of the new capability that I have acquired, I think the closer you can see it, the better it is. And maybe IT organizations are far more successful in implementing and reaping the benefits of learning is because this linkage is so strong. I mean, your employability is directly connected to your skills, isn't it, in a technology space? So when people get put into maybe, the new capabilities the organization is building, your next assignment is based on whether you are certified to work on those technologies or not. So I think bringing this as close to your contribution, your employability, your success at an individual level, and to the organization success at an org level, I think is really the connection that L&D teams can make. So thank you
Geeta,
for that.
One more thing I would say, like you said, technology, it's easy to sort of correlate, but softer skills has always been a challenge, and I have been working on it for many, many years. One of the things that I feel like I have cracked is do journey programs, do programs not less than 3 months, have a sustainable journey. So that same group comes to you again and again, but they have interim time to apply those learnings. But right at the beginning, you set the goals really, really clearly. Have a vision of what is it that I'm going to achieve, what is it that I'm going to change at the end of 3 months, and articulate that, like literally use the SMART goal formula and articulate that and have that written right up front. And then kind of every session, you ask, how have you been doing? What have you been applying? And when I did that, by the end of the program, I got every single person to do 1-pager of a presentation saying what was the impact at a personal level, what was the impact you were able to create at business level, and how did this impact your teams. And you won't believe it. And this was by softer skills like executive presence, speaking with confidence, influencing skills, negotiation skills, goal setting, these kind of programs. Actually, I have examples, so many examples of people who said, I was doing 10x business, but with the program, I got so much confidence and so much motivation and so much of I can do. We worked a lot on mindset that I'm now doing 20x of what I was doing. I cannot believe that I'm doing this. I'm much more out in the marketplace. My team relationships are better. So able to say in concrete terms, and then CEO came for that meeting. So get the business to be part of that presentation. And the CEO said, I'm just totally bowled over by what I see, the impact that this has created. So it's possible to,
Yeah.
say
Thank
that.
you.
Ganesh,
So
you are on
Ganesh,
mute.
you are on mute.
I was just saying, if I can have a quick word on this concept of half-life, and I think Jitendra also mentioned it rightly, that the day has gone when people will learn through a 2-year MBA program. So because the whole half-life thing you're talking about, I mean, if you look at Yuval Noah Harari's book Homo Deus, he talks about that every 12 to 15 years, your entire learning will be obsolete. So going through a 2-year process, thinking that it'll be applicable for the next 40 years of your life is completely, I mean, it's not going to happen. So I think the continuous learning, short nuggets of skills that you learn, I think that's probably going to be much better. And from that point of view, in a sense, I disagree a little bit with what Jitendra said. You can't expect academic institutions to become skilling institutions. I mean, there was a place for the Aptechs and the NIITs, and there was a place for the IIT Bombays and the IIM Ahmedabads. Because what you expect an academic institution to do is to give you the conceptual underpinning. You want, even in IT, you want people to train to become software engineers. After that, whether it's Oracle 11.0 or Python 2.0 or GPT-4o, I think they'll have to pick up. So, train people for learnability and make sure that they get opportunities to keep refreshing their skills. So if we look at it like that, I think organizations will be more successful, leaders will be more successful, and of course, every employee, every associate of the organization will start becoming a better contributor.
Yeah, so I would like to share an example from recently we went live with a learning experience platform at HDFC Bank, which was through, of course, partnership with Edcast. Now we have a platform that allows for learning in the flow of work, as they say. So I'm working on something and I need to have a quick understanding on how on a particular concept. There is this window sitting there, right there. I can go on it. I can type what that means, and it just pulls up, a Harvard Business study on it, or some case study or something. And I can actually implement that in what I'm doing and get on with it. So these kind of, I think technology has enabled this now. The lifespan, the attention span of learners also has now somebody was telling me the other day, it's as small as a goldfish, the attention span, and the amount of time people are expected to sit in a place and concentrate on something. All of that is shifting really fast. The distractions that we have at any point in time, and learning content needs to cut through all of this. So I can quite understand the difficulties in this, but I think technology has played a huge role in making that possible, making real-time learning possible in the flow of work. I listen to podcasts when I'm driving. That's a favorite time for me to put on podcasts, because it's like like a closed capsule, and I'm just lost in the conversation, and that becomes a much looked forward to hour of my day, where I'm just listening to the voice, and that's a learning time for me. So moving from there, Ganesh, there is a lot of conversation about building learning agility and learning organizations to make it intrinsic to the way people run businesses, and to create learning organizations. This concept was, of course, popularized by Peter Senge many years back. And organizations since then have been trying to build this in one way or the other. But today it's a business need. The survival of the business, the changing, I would say, business models, almost overnight changing of business models. All of this has made it extremely, I would say, critical survival skill for organization to be in the continuous learning space. What can organizations do? Or are there any fundamental mistakes or gaps that we are not looking at that we should be cognizant of?
See, I think one is organization, but let me start with the individual. See, today the reality is, I keep advising people that if you're 45 years old, and you think you can quit and get a similar job elsewhere, forget it. People will not hire you.
That's
Because organizations are also being very, can I say cynical, can I be brutal? But people are saying that, look, a person with 10 years of experience in a role is as good and obviously much lower paid than somebody with 25 years experience in a role. So unless you keep reinventing yourself, unless you keep learning new things, I mean, I love what you said about having a window where a chat GPT or something or a co-pilot could actually be prompting
Yeah.
you on, okay, this is how you can do work better. Because that is absolutely synchronous with work, which is a fantastic concept
Yeah.
you're implementing. So to answer your question, I think the learning organization will happen when the learning stream is almost parallel with the work stream. It's exactly what you said. But I am no longer a believer in people being pulled out for a 3-month training program, etc. Because
Right.
even that time away from the organization, organizations will not really tolerate. So, I mean, you keep sending people for the person you can spare goes for the most of training. Okay, which is very unfortunate.
Absolutely. I can
Because
totally resonate with that.
invaluable person in the organization will never find time to be trained. So that's exactly why, training, exactly what you said about the podcast was a wonderful story. So if we can all think about how do we learn on the job, how do we learn along with the job, and not expect that you'll have these long gaps in your career where you self-teach yourself, etc. I mean, you're talking about the 2-year MBA. I mean, I went for the 10-week advanced management program in Harvard Business School. And even then, of course, contrary to the orders given by HBS, I was on a call with my team every 2 hours every morning, 5:30 to 7:30. But there's so much they pack into it that if you're ready for it, I mean, you'll really relish it. If you're not ready for it and you're going for a semi-holiday and a semi-learning experience, by the time you go back to your work, you're obsolete. So I know these are slightly contrarian points on learning and development, but I'm saying let's make it joy, what you said. Let's make it important to our work that we keep learning. Then the motivation to learn will be automatic.
Thank you, Ganesh. Jitendra, now coming to you. Learner is changing rapidly as well, right? Their expectation of what to expect from, irrespective of what the organization has. I was talking to one young 26-year-old now, and on some important learning that we had assigned him for, and a talent management initiative we had assigned him for, and he just did not turn up. So I was curious to know why would he do that, and much investment had gone into that particular intervention. So I was talking to him, and he was just saying that, well, this is what the organization has nominated me for because that's what you want me to do. That is not what I want to do. Now, how do you solve for this? There is learner's expectation on one end. There is an organizational need that you need people trained on a certain things. Can this go together? Is there a way to kind of marry this and therefore enthuse people to go on a natural course to learn?
So this is exactly, I believe Mridula covered this, in terms of identifying what the training requirements are. And that cannot be one dimensional in terms of the organization finding out what, a typical resource is required to learn. It is also in terms of having a counter reciprocal, excitement, if that's the right word, in terms of he's saying that, yes, this is something that I'm looking forward to. Otherwise, compulsive participation generally has never fetched the required results. In any case, I mean, today, if you speak to any of those L&D heads, the biggest challenge, at least I can speak from my experience of today being on the other side, the biggest challenge is to get people into a classroom or into a training initiative. Participation, the first emotion is reluctance. The first emotion is reluctance, and that originates, in my view at least, it originates from the fact that perhaps there is no realization of the fact that this is A, going to help them, or B, knowing that this is what I want to do. So a correlation of what they want to what the organization want, marrying the two, and then figuring out what pedagogy to be applied in terms of training. Because again, going back to a classroom sunte hi log bore ho jate hain. Typically getting into a classroom infrastructure, sitting in, there is one trainer there are 30 people or 20 people sitting here. Again, look at it from the L&D perspective, connecting to the first question that you asked me, because there's a cost optimization initiative, there are 30 of them packed in. Now all these 30 are different human minds, with some commonalities, which is goals, or if I may say, objectives that they may have for the company. Ab hota kya yahan pe, in my view, I've seen three types of, if I have to broadly categorize, and I'm saying this purely from my company, we are a team of about, all put together, my companies put together, we should about 700, 800 odd people. So usme maine dekha hai that there are three categories of, of learners. Okay, one, which is the self-motivated category. No, these are guys who are sincerely looking forward to, the concept that you spoke about the window prompting, and they are wonderful initiatives, which in my view, and with all humility, I should say that is applied to this category of self-motivated, learners who are looking forward in terms of incrementing their knowledge, learning something new, etc. There's a second category who needs a little bit of, I will not use the word push, perhaps that is being disrespectful for them, but they need to be nudged. Okay, they need to be told there is a linkage to appraisal. They need to be told that this is good for you, and they have the maturity to understand, yes, it is required. And I've been told, and I realize, chalo dekh lete hain, if that's a broader, terminology that one can refer it as. So that's a second category. And then there is a third category, which is people who are sincerely disinterested. And these are all the naughty boys in the classroom when you put them as well. I mean, people who have been in training. I have not been a trainer, but I mean, the biggest challenge is to get the buy-in of all the 30 people. You'll never get them. There would be some of those smart Johnnies who will always feel that, look, I know more than the trainer. And unfortunately, the wheel is in their hand, because ultimately they're going to give the feedback. And based on that feedback, that trainer who's engaged will get repeat orders. So the trainer has a compulsion to not being too direct. Okay, the learner knows that, look, I have the weapon of feedback. So it's all puzzled, in that sense. So to me, as I see it, if you mix these three categories in one classroom, okay, that's a recipe for not the best success outcome of a particular training program. So if there is a particular way in which we can identify who are the self-motivated characters, because these 10, 20 or 30% of people who are self-motivated people are the motivation for the L&D department. Varna unko kya motivation hai? You just imagine these poor guys, they are putting in all their efforts, and at the end of it, somebody will just, walk off after lunch or be busy with their mobiles or WhatsApp or whatever the case is. But if you put this 20-30% or depending whatever percentage, depending on the organization that they are in, it also has, in my view, it also has some linkage to the maturity and the age group of the people that we are addressing. Notwithstanding either of the three categories, the age of that particular, because the ability to understand also changes with time and age, both ways. Uska bhi ek lena dena hai. It has also got to do with the organizational maturity stage. I mean, what you do in a startup is very different from what you would do in a matured company. Startups which have matured into reasonably stable organization, you will see over a period of 3 to 5 years, there is a way that the training methodology needs to evolve. Maybe the organization has matured, our processes still remain the same. I've seen it in our own, in our own ecosystems, and we are, at least after realization, we are trying to change. So the reality is that this, candidates buy-in or resources buy-in or participants buy-in, till the time it is not to that extent very, very, very scientifically done, these mismatches and training miscoordinations will continue to exist. The other connected point, if I may submit, is also to say that, out of these categories, the training methodology should also change. For the disinterested category, the third one, make it into experiential learning and see that the interest outcomes change. And I'm not saying for all of them, there's no magic wand to it, but you will see a lot of them, they don't want to not come in because of the trainer, because this whole concept of a classroom learning, bore hota hai. So how do you change that into now some very interesting, the other day, we had a very, very innovative trainer who had come in, and I'll not divulge too much details, but, she had come in with a proposition of using a particular movie. Okay, and the entire training be based on that movie and what are the key learning outcomes that you will get out of it. Now, the moment that was proposed to this category of the sort of disinterested ones, there was excitement around it because it's different. So, kahan pe thoda innovation, L&D, if they can bring in an element of innovation, not only in delivery, even in thinking, understanding, participating, and why shouldn't people do tabletop trainings? मतलब कौन बोलते हैं चेयर पे बैठ के आदमी सीखता है? There is no necessity for that. Why can't training be in a garden? Experiential learning, there are so many things that people are innovating, and I'm not necessarily that everybody is interested in that, but something has to be different, then what is it? Or
perhaps the trick is in customizing through the for the learning. The way the person receives learning is different, and every individual is different, and technology now allows us to customize this.
And people are looking at personalization. You look at everything, right from everything that we are doing with technology. There's a huge level of personalization, and I see these being the trends that could be perhaps led the L&D teams. Kuch alag karna padega, because the status quo is not. adequate.
Status quo is not working.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. We have now 10 minutes more. I have one question to ask all three of you. What would be that one big ask of the L&D team from the leadership? So from your perspective, what would be that big ask? And then I have a surprise question. So I don't know if we are left with much time for Q&A. I'm sorry about this. Ganesh, maybe you processed right. But that was not me talking this time. So to start with you, what is that one big ask or most significant expectation?
I think the expectation is that the L&D team should make the effort to understand the business. I mean, the business challenges, what I talked about, the environment, and they should not be sitting in an ivory tower and saying technology is left to the CTO or the CIO. So the ability to integrate everything and say that, look, I will be the true business partner to the CEO always helps. I mean, I've had some amazing business partners as HR heads, but they could almost think along with me and the CFO and say that, look, this is how we can contribute to the organization. Because there have been people who sit on an ivory tower and saying, look, this is my core competence. If you can't use me, your problem. That's not going to work in today's context.
Yeah. Thank you. Rudula, what is that one most significant expectation?
Yeah, quite similar to what Ganesh said. Oftentimes in large organizations, the HR and L&D teams don't have the preview to the business meetings. And they are not invited to, those kind of reviews. I remember when I was in Genpact, we used to have a monthly business review meeting and all functions were integrated together in that. So it was a day-long review meeting where every single function came and presented, including business. So everybody knew. We knew about finance, we knew about technology, we knew about the business, and everyone was on same page. So I think that was really powerful. So if that one ask is that L&D gets a seat on the table and active participation in business conversation so that they build that understanding and work solutions together, co-create.
I'll just add to that, Mridula. L&D and HR today has a seat on the table. They need to make better use of that. And that's from my vantage point in the.
I mean, I see a variety of organizations being a consultant. Yeah. So somewhere I have seen very, very smart HR people who's got total, confidence of the CEO, and they are building strategies and business plans together with them. And then I've also seen in large organizations, HR functions the model of the business is such that they don't get to sit in the business meetings.
Yeah, got that.
Yeah, we have
both the spectrums.
Yeah, I would concur with what both of them have said, because I feel L&D as we speak, and I have a lot of respect for all the L&D folks, but it's more execution oriented. Okay, it is more administrative, if I may say so. From there, it has to move on. I would love to see our L&D spending time on the floor in terms of how people are selling or how people are coding or how the finance department struggles to get receivables if it's a B2C business or a B2B business. So if they can get action oriented as compared to, tech / pen / whatever is the right
theory oriented. Yeah.
So they get in, because then what happens is if you, a coach is different from a captain. So if you wear the cap of a coach, okay, you are always outside the boundary. You're not playing the game. You're always on an advisory role. Okay, I would expect them to be a part of the team, and they would be one of the 11 who's on the field. So they understand what's the extent of the dew, or they understand how slippery it is, or what's the pace of the pitch. If those are, analogies that correlate to.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
So Abhi, as we speak, L&D is back end. Okay, I would expect it to be in the front end. Okay, and in my career, I've met quite a few L&Ds and some of the best brains in the business. And I don't know if this backend is systemic and they are forced to be there, or I don't know if it is something that they get customized to that environment and they love to stay backend. But in my view, some of the best brains that I've met in the business, they need to be on the front foot, go ahead and basically look at the people who excel.
They need to be in the game.
You have to bring that level of madness.
Yeah.
L&D are some of the best guys I have met in my career. And I feel they have all the required competence to be on the front foot and bring in a level of madness through innovation and just shake the system. Make yourself count and go out and say that, look, I'm a cost center here to enable the business and get you all to higher productivity. And the trick to this lies in my first point, measurability. Keep it measurable. And my last submission, this is not contextual to what you've asked me, but I also feel, I think Mridula touched on that point. This transactional concept of engaging one trainer, okay, then what happens is you are topical. Okay, training program should ideally be, it should be aligned with one organization. Okay, and not only one organization, even with that particular trainer. If the two can come together and make the process a little more consultative, okay, in my view, results will start coming in. Otherwise, we'll always be thinking about how did this training program go? What is the feedback of that? Acha hai, bura hai, kam acha hai, as the cases. And then we go back and identify another trainer. I mean, apply all your skills. The L&D should apply all the skills in terms of, identifying who's the right business partner, the training partner. And ek baar aapne select kar liya, then marry that at least for the next 1,000 days. So over a period of 1,000 days, 3 years, measure what has been the, and constant, there will be milestones that you will keep checking. Otherwise, this transactional based training program will always keep L&D on the toes. Yahan pe agar aap integrate ho jate ho, you will see that business outcomes will be far more stronger. If you don't understand the business from the learner's side, from the L&D side, and also from the service provider's side, the three has to come together to tango well, is what I would expect to see. तो वो भरोसा दिखाएं कि 3 साल के लिए आप ही हमारे हो, 1 साल के लिए, 3 साल के लिए, whatever is a suitable number, right?
Yeah.
And then make it strategic. Otherwise, all this doctor-patient nahi chalta hai. I go to one dentist today, I go to another the next time.
Got it.
You'll be left with no teeth. You'll be left with no teeth.
Yeah, it has to be like a good hairstylist. उसके पास हमको बार-बार जाना पड़ता है. For 20 years.
Very good analogy. जी बिल्कुल एकदम सही.
Right. Okay, so we have finished the business part of our discussion, but I will steal 5 minutes to ask trick questions to all of you. Not trick question, it's just a fun question to know a little bit more about all of you. So first one to you, Mridula. If you had a magic wand or a superpower for one day, what would you like to change about the space in learning? Overnight.
Overnight, what will I change? It's a very good question for deep reflection. What will I change? I think, one of the biggest things, a magic wand, if I could create the hook for the participant, like a magic wand that I just put the magic wand on and the person is very keen and takes charge of their learning, I think that would be it.
Okay, thank you. Jitendra, to you, if you were to choose another career and not do what you're doing, all of us post 50 has this existential question. If agar main ye nahi kar raha hota, to kya kar raha hota? That is my question to you. What would you have been doing outside the corporate space or investing space that you're in?
Madam, 15 साल से मैं यही सोच रहा हूँ. That's one of the reasons. I'm not stuck at one place. If you look at the diversity yeah, I mean, I started with education, moved into fintech, moved into HR, okay, moved into warehousing and logistics, supply chain, okay, moved into IT in a different manner. So, I love this diversity because what happens is you meet new people. I think Ganeshji made a very relevant point. What happens is, you're learning in a particular industry, whether you like it or not, stagnates after a particular time. It's like cycling. 90% you learn in the first 10 days, the balance 10% you're learning all your life. So, मेरे जैसे बंदे का problem क्या है? After 90%, I'm not too excited. So there is a constant move. So
constant move.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to ask me, I personally feel that when I look back, perhaps I could have done something in that tech space. I think I had the required knowledge, but perhaps not the hunger at that time. But I moved the fintech way. I just thought it was a little more compelling.
But so there is a little bit of tech as well.
I mean that also industry,
Yes.
But yes, very happy with what we are doing, and and also I think as the career moves, you don't only work for money. At least I mean, this is not to say that our hunger is any subdued today. Don't get me wrong, but I think you mature to understand that your life and your contributions to a particular ecosystem is beyond monetary. Right. So that whole feel of having a few unicorns on your CV or having, some large establishments on your CV, that gives you the excitement beyond, the monetary punches.
Well said. Thank you. Over to you, Ganesh. If there is one thing on your bucket list that you haven't yet crossed off, what would that be?
Not
And if it
really. I
is
mean,
in
I
confidence.
know I know it sounds very egoistic, but I mean, I think I pretty much, and exactly what Jitendra said. I mean, having been through 5 careers in one lifetime, from production engineering to managing Datta Samand unions to then, of course, leading a training business, then two CEO careers, and now most of my life is in the social sector. So if there's only one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to be Tiger Woods and focus only on golf next year. I mean, in the next life, but this life is too late to be Tiger Woods.
Thank you. And that brings us to the close of this session. Thank you, Vikram and Eduram, for giving me the opportunity to have this interesting conversation.
May I
And,
ask that
over to you.
question back to you, Geeta? What would be your magic wand? You haven't answered
Okay.
that.
Well, I would, okay, I'm not sure because there is many things I would like to change, not one thing. So that will be a long list. But I will take Ganesh's surprise question. What would I be doing if I wasn't doing the corporate 10 hours a day job? I would be a stage actress
Nice.
in my
Well,
other life.
you
Yeah.
just did a great job. You just did a great job in the last 90 minutes. So good. You're ready for it.
I wasn't acting. This is me in real. Okay, over to you, Shraddha.
Thank you so much. Would request all the panelists to be there because we have 2 questions in our Q&A before I do a closing note for this. So our first question is from Nidhi. What can be the main strategies for enhancing employee skills? Additionally, how can we keep our learners consistently motivated throughout the learning? Any tips? Would request Dineshji, Jain, Geeta, Mridula, any one of you all to please answer to
I
Nidhi.
have already
No,
responded in the chat, but
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
yeah, Ganesh, go ahead.
I don't think we have too
Because
much
that was
time.
not
So
on
what
the
I'm
chat,
saying,
that was on the
no,
Q&A, and that's the reason I categorically pulled out those 2
no,
questions.
let me just answer that. I think the whole idea is not to be too prescriptive about it. I mean, if there is a cause, like for instance, today I'm finding the most motivated people across the 5 organizations I work with is in the social entity called Lighthouse. I mean, people just come in there, they get absorbed with this purpose of transforming slum children across the country, and they never go away. I mean, the salaries are terrible, the work conditions may not be the best, but the purpose ignites their desire to continue working. So I'm saying you have to, I mean, I think Gandhiji said, find purpose, the means will follow. But I would say find purpose, the learning and the ambition and everything else will follow. So if you don't have a purpose for your organization and you're just out to make money for some promoter, nobody's going to be motivated. So that purpose is very important.
Geeta, Jain, if would you all want to put in some light and share in your inputs as well, it would be great.
In my view, may not get a generalized group of people who are, sort of not interested or not self-motivated. So I go back to the theory of segregating, those into different buckets and finding customized solutions in terms of, for the self-motivated, knowledge is a great attraction. I mean, at the age that we were growing up, we fell in that category because any training program was excitement. And we also knew that, look, we had to go back and do our job because there's nobody else who could fill in and do what you're supposed to do. But like excitement, so you will find those type of people as well. And also there are some, in my view, perhaps judging them will be difficult, that you do whatever, they may not be interested in that training program. So I would broadly look at the first and second category and deploy my effort and energy and even expect my, what we use the word ROTI, return on training investments. Okay. And in terms of coming back and telling us that, look, inke itne kiye hain, itna fayda ho gaya hai, and so be it. And the balance 20%, they will, I mean, it's that typical theory, right? You know that there are going to be some percentage of dead votes. And they may have different qualities. So it's for the HR, then the L&D gives it to HR and they find out it's their problem then. But L&D has to, motivate them by segregating. The same motivational tools will not apply to all and sundry.
I'll just add one more point to what you said, and I'm conscious of the time. But as HR, I'm getting less and less concerned about this matter, because if you do not learn and keep yourself abreast, it will impact your career. And that effect and impact is now getting closer and closer in timeline, right? Every 2 years, 3 years, we're reevaluating talent, and the person is not up to speed and not able to contribute, not able to see, what is coming next and keep them updated. It is impacting their career in real time directly. So I think selfish interest is the world's strongest motivator. And that's playing out now like never before. So I am less concerned about it as HR.
Great. Thank you.
And I
One
just very
last
quickly,
question.
yeah,
Sorry.
just quickly, I will respond to this question.
Please.
As an L&D, Rahul's question, as an L&D professional, we meet people and ask them on the requirements or trainings required for their business or ease of work. But post the training, how to get the result or making the program effective is a main issue. So I think when we start with any kind of learning program, and that's why I'm fond of journeys, is because you don't measure results post the training. You set up the stage for results before the training begins. And what I mean by that is, ask the audience, what does success look like at the, it's your people who are coming into the training, their managers, leaders. Why are you investing in this learning program? What are the results you are expecting? So what define the success right up front, which will give purpose and vision and goal to the participants. And once they know this is what they want to accomplish as a result of this training, then they look at everything that is discussed in the classroom as their own issues to solve. By the end of this, and then you give them tools in the middle, by the end of the program, it is so critical for them to apply those immediately. So if I go through a particular program today, I must apply something of that program today or tomorrow. I cannot underestimate the importance of that. Application, immediate application is the key. Otherwise, within 2-3 days, you forget 60%, 70% of the learning. So how can you put a framework around quick applications in succession? And then then you can start to see the results. So that's my short bit.
In the interest of time, I would want to ask the panelists that is it okay if I put in one last question which is there on the Q&A, because we've already passed 4 minutes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So we have a question from Rahul. As an L&D professional, we meet people and ask them on the requirements or training required for their business
This is what I
ease of
answered.
work. Great. But others that would want to, please share in the light. I'll just complete the question I'll just read out the question again. As an L&D professional, we meet people and ask them on the requirements or trainings required for post the training, how to get the results or making the programs effective is an main issue. Can you please give an insight on this?
Jitendra, you go first.
Yeah. So depends on the functions. Okay, depends on what department the training has been. For example, if it is sales, it's fairly measurable. Okay, if it is a composition of different departments being put together, because I hope you all know that HR has now targets in terms of ensuring how many hours of training has been done in a month and in a year, and what has been the landscape that has been covered. So the point being made is that if we can make out who's the one who's in a particular department which are reasonably measurable to the one which is completely unmeasurable. These two compartments, if we segregate and then implement certain measurable tools in terms of understanding what the outcomes have been and relay the positive outcomes in terms of telling the other department and how it has helped. This whole belief system has to nurture over a period of time. तो ये एक ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम में तो हो नहीं पाएगा. And again, I come back saying that if it's transactional, it is just going to be left as if we go and meet one of those gym trainers once upon a time and we are not engaged. It's a typical example. When you are with a gym trainer, you stick with them for a period of time. So wo ek baar, if you foster that kind of a relationship, in my view, to some extent, we will build the answer that Rahul is asking for.
Great.
Just a couple of points on a couple of points on this. I think, I know I keep saying this, but L&D has to see themselves as ready to engage with the CEO or the functional head. Going like what outcomes will just put you in almost like a supplier. So learn the business, go in there and collaborate and say that, look, how can we help you to achieve this outcome rather than saying, what can you do for your training? There is this archaic process, which many of you may be still following. The end of every appraisal, you say, what are the development areas for this individual? I think that's ridiculous. If you don't know it by now, working with a person for 1 year, what is he going to write at the end of it? He'll say, I want to go to MBA and Harvard Business School. So what? So I'm saying this has to be collaborative. Learning and development has to partner the CFO. I had an outstanding CHRO called Asfar Hussain, and in Zensar, today who's now heading the whole learning academy of Bajaj Finserv. Absolutely amazing. So he would argue against anything that he thought what I was saying was not right. At the end of a 10-minute conversation, we would be completely in consensus on outcomes. That is what L&D needs to be. Not an order taker, but a participant in the growth journey of an organization.
Great.
Just
I think we need to have a pause to it because we have already crossed 8 minutes. I'll just quickly thank each and every panelist for sparing out this 90 minutes, more than 90 minutes for this event. Starting with Mr. Natarajan, thank you for joining our panel and enriching it with your insights, invaluable expertise. That's really been good to hear you. Thank you, JN, for infusing our panel with your dynamic energy and expertise. Your insights have truly added to today's dialogue. Thank you, Mridula, for bringing your wealth of experience and insightful perspectives to our panel. Last but not the least, thank you, Ms. George, for gracefully moderating our event, and we deeply appreciate your invaluable contribution to today's dialogue. Guys, if you all have any questions and anything, please put it on chat and we'll try to get back to you all. Thank you, everybody.
Please also thank all the participants. They have been patiently hearing us for 90 minutes. And
Definitely,
in today's world, content consumption of 90 minutes is a big challenge.
But I must say it has been one of the interactive things because people have been there for 90 minutes. I couldn't see anybody going out.
This is for the participants.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
So that's also
Thank
initial
you.
transformation. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And thank you very much,
Thank
Geeta.
you.
That was a
Bye-bye.
wonderful session.
Take care.